please stop using my photo to promote your transphobic agenda. Thank you. Hey Spuds, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. Welcome to your first video. I don't know, it's Jamie. I hope you're doing well and I hope you're gonna enjoy this video, although I'm not sure if that's the right thing to say for this video. Hope this video is interesting. Today I'm talking about a little something that happened with the use of my photograph in a way I did not want it to be used. First thing I want to mention in this video is I'm gonna be talking about two platforms that I don't really want to shed light on because I don't think they deserve any more attention. One is a podcast and the other is a book, and I was really in two minds about making this video because I just did not want to bring any attention to shed any more light on these two things. However, I'm clearly making this video and I decided to go ahead with making it with three things in mind. That would be 9. Just 3 things. First thing, whilst I don't want to give these bad platforms, well, a platform, I also hate how much these platforms tend to use trans activists or just well-known trans people to promote their causes. And this is done without permission, without consent, without even knowledge of the trans people that they're being used in this way, and with the capacity to cause so much damage without saying sorry, without repairing it, and often bringing a whole lot of hate towards the trans people. It's something that really frustrates me and I wanted to talk about it, and to be honest, I didn't really see a way that I'd be able to talk about it without mentioning these platforms, at least in some way. Secondly, if transphobes are going to use successful trans people who are very happy with their journeys to try and promote their wrong and misguided anti-trans claims, and to profit off of it, and off of the trans people, I'm going to make a video about it and profit off of them. And I don't mean in just money or views, but I mean in reclaiming the message and my image. Because I genuinely feel disgusted and disrespected that my image has been taken out of context and used to promote a message that I obviously very fundamentally disagree with, and also just fundamentally goes against my existence and who I am. And thirdly, whilst I will be mentioning these two platforms, I figured that if I kindly ask you to not buy the book, not listen to the podcast, not tweet about them, at them, or give them any more attention or airtime, I can make my points and then together we can make sure that they do not benefit off of it any further. So please don't contribute to the discussions around them any further than watching this video. I just really wanted to make this to reclaim my image and just talk about why it's so frustrating that it's used in that way, but I really don't want these platforms being promoted. I completely realise the hypocrisy in me saying this when I'm literally making a video about it, but it's as a one-time thing, and please refer back to point 2, me living my best trans life. No, it's also, you know, reclaiming my image and the message. So, who did what? I'm gonna tell you, but you're gonna have to stick with me a little bit on this one because the chain of events are a tiny bit confusing. I apologise in advance. A well-ish known transphobe wrote a transphobic book that talks about trans men who are known online without getting their consent, as well as just generally being very transphobic. I am not in this book, but a podcast that calls itself Feminist had this transphobic author on their podcast as a guest to promote her book. Fun times. I know it sounds complicated. Here's where I get involved. Because guess what? That podcast decided to use my photo, one of my photos, to advertise the episode that this transphobe was on to advertise her book. And placed it next to a complete lie about transitioning. And this is what was used to promote that podcast that was promoting that book. Just what? Now I'm pretty sure I don't have to go into detail about what is wrong in this scenario, but what frustrates me about this so much is that twice in this process, a variety of trans men, including me, now that my image was used, have had our literal identities and who we are lied about, and those lies are being used to try and backpedal equality and rights for trans people. And that really sucks. So I'd like to talk about why that really sucks and just how little protection there is against it. Because let me say, this is not the first time, and I know it's very unlikely to be the last time that my image has been used in a similar way, as in a way to spread a message that I don't agree with, and it just makes me very uncomfortable. I'm talking about people who are truly trying to step on trans people and trans rights and are using trans people and images of trans people to try and spread that message in a really hurtful way. And in ways that come across as seemingly articulate and intelligent, which just makes it even worse. So let's talk about this photo. This photo is from literally 8 years ago. Actually, more than 8 years ago, because I'm more than 8 years and 4 weeks post-op, because this is from when I was 4 weeks post-op and I had top surgery over 8 years ago. And this image has now been used to promote the idea that people regret transitioning, and that transitioning doesn't actually improve people's lives, and there's some big scary transgender craze taking over, also called the transgender agenda, which no trans person actually knows what that is. These are all viewpoints that I clearly, obviously very strongly disagree with, and would never ever want my image associated with at all. Why do I not want this, and why are these lies? Well, let me, and in a not big-headed way, 5 years of research experience in this very field, explain to you. Firstly, the regret rate is incredibly low. We're talking like under 0.5% has been found in studies. And transitioning has been consistently found to reduce gender dysphoria and increase well-being. Part of my own PhD research is on the effects of transitioning on the well-being of trans people, so trust me when I say it greatly improves trans people's well-being. The views they have on trans people is feeding into, or has at least partly been born out of, the whole conspiracy that there's money to be made or some gain to be had by forcing people, in particular children, into transitioning. This conspiracy is absurd on so many levels. Firstly, it's absurd because trans people are literally the last people who would ever want to force somebody to live as a gender that they are not, because we know how it feels. And secondly, because it's just simply not true that kids or anybody are being pressured into transitioning or told that transitioning is some magical thing. It's actually a very difficult and rigorous process, particularly for kids, to transition. And even then, for children, it's only ever puberty blockers. No child will ever be put on hormones or have surgery related to being trans. Now, a chunk of this belief around trans people and a lot of damage has been caused by one particular research study. I don't know if you know what I'm gonna say next, but it's also the research study that coined the term rapid onset gender dysphoria. I've got a whole in-depth video planned on this topic, so I'm not going to go into too much detail right now, but the main thing you need to know about rapid onset gender dysphoria is it's a completely mythological thing, whereby being trans is seen as some sort of social contagion, and like when one kid in a friendship group comes out as trans, suddenly they will all be trans. There were many flaws to this study, but one massive one is that literally no trans people were involved in the research. All of the results and data came from the parents of kids who might be trans, and those parents were found on anti-trans websites. The research literally sought out parents who were against their kids being trans. Totally unbiased then. So that's some of the backgrounds to the origins of this whole story. I just felt it was necessary to give you a full picture of just why it's so bad. It's basically a conspiracy theory and a fake phenomenon called rapid onset gender dysphoria. So circling back round to the Transphobe the book and the podcast, the very terrible version of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, Abigail Schreier is the author of the anti-trans book. And just in case you do want to know more about the book without giving it any more attention, I've left a link to a video from Ty Turner. He did a great video about it. And if you would like to hear anything more from Abigail, she did an interview that Noah Fintz reacted to, also great. I've left a link to that as well. Noah's video, not the interview. This isn't Abigail Schreier's first dabble into the pool of being transphobic publicly. She made a shocking PragerU advert a while back, where she said some lovely things such as,
"The Fairfax County School District in Virginia removed the phrase biological gender from its curriculum and replaced it with the phrase sex assigned at birth. This is how the left legislates away the concept of biological sex without ever having to make the argument, without ever having to convince anyone. They're trying to make sex assigned at birth as trivial and malleable as name assigned at birth.
And
if gender activists prevail, we may be left with a world we neither recognize nor like very much. We won't be able to communicate our displeasure. We will have lost the words."
Yep. But writing this book kind of took things 100 steps further. And of course she'd got a podcast that agreed with her transphobic views, wouldn't she? Right? Here's a snippet of the interview that this podcast had with her.
It's not even necessarily about gender, is the funny thing. These girls are in distress. We know that. We've seen that. Jonathan Haidt has written on this. These girls are in the midst of the worst mental health crisis we've ever seen among teenage girls. And they sort of look to the culture as people in psychological distress do, to be able to self-diagnose. You know, what is the pain that I'm feeling? And because there's so much awareness and prevalence of, of the transgender identity in the culture, they're looking to gender dysphoria to explain the pain they feel.
So delightful. And this is where we get to my involvement. The way the podcast decided to advertise this episode that involved Abigail promoting her transphobic book was to use my very freshly post-op photo, accompanied with a total lie of a quotation about transitioning not actually helping gender dysphoria. I didn't post that photo to be sad. I was documenting my own journey and my own transition to help others who might be experiencing the same thing or going through the same thing. And they didn't just use the original photo. Oh no, that would be too simple. They used a version that, in my opinion, highlighted my scars. I'm not sure if they did that themselves or somebody else did that for them to use, but either way, just how sad is that that's what you have to do to try and prove your very wrong point. I'm over 8 years post-op now, and they only posted this a couple months ago, so clearly there's plenty of images that are more recent that they could have used. This is also not an image that comes up instantly or very easily when searching for me or top surgery results. At least not when I search for it. And when I search for top surgery results, generally most of them are just very well-heeled, well-looking, fantastic, beautiful chests. Or there's just tons of me online looking really damn happy with a very well-heeled chest. I wonder why they didn't choose any of those ones. I can't think. They purposely sought out a very old photo from me from a long time ago to give a certain impression of this surgery. There's a very good reason why they didn't use healed photos, and why they couldn't find top surgery results from somebody who actually regretted it and agreed with their narrative. If you want to promote transitioning as a bad thing, the least you can do is not use the photograph of a trans man who is now 8 years post-op, nearly 10 years into transitioning, significantly happier since transitioning and has zero regrets whatsoever. It's really not a very strong advertisement for transphobia. I've contacted them multiple times asking them to remove this from all their social media platforms because it's not theirs to use and they do not have my permission. They mentioned fair use in a reply as they claimed the image was used for commentary or criticism, which is just not true because there is no commentary or criticism on the image. The image is just simply used to advertise their podcast and advertise a message that I do not agree with. That's not commentary. They also said that out of courtesy and respect, they would remove my face. How is that respectful? You're still using my image. They literally just cropped out my face to here, and then it was just more zoomed in on my chest. Cropping my face out does not make it okay. Still my body. I really found their use of words like courtesy and respect very laughable, because what would have been respectful is to not use my image in the first place, or to remove it completely. I mean, preferably not use it at all, but at least remove it completely when you know you don't have my permission. I believe it has now been removed from their Twitter account, but as of the date I'm recording this, 28th of September 2020, it is still up on their Instagram. And despite many requests, reporting it many times, and seeking legal advice, the damn image is still there. I think it's unbelievably rude and a violation of my literal image that they used my photograph in the first place, and still continue to use it despite many polite requests from myself and comments from other people. They actually switched comments off of that post because too many people were asking them to remove it. Literally turned the comments off instead of just taking it down. Beyond this, they even retweeted their original post on Twitter, saying how happy they were that it hadn't been taken down and Twitter was standing up for free speech. Obviously, I've reported it multiple times, but nothing has happened on Instagram yet. So I wanted to talk about it because I'm fed up that my image is being used to promote something that I so strongly disagree with, and that it's so difficult to get anything done about it. And in the bigger picture, not only is this happening to me in terms of a photograph online, but it's happened to several other trans guys who are literally being used in this book. I'm annoyed. Instagram and Twitter haven't got back to me despite my multiple requests, and that transphobic people, places, organisations continue to get away with doing stuff like this and just stealing other people's images and lying about it. They won't stop, and it's not that hurts me, but the idea that my photos and the documentation of my journey and my progress, which I've only ever done to help people understand better, is being used in a way to induce hate and reverse understanding of a community, the community I'm a part of, and that I'm trying to help. That's what's really not okay. Saying that, I also find it laughable that they chose my image. I'm kind of in two minds. I'm annoyed, and it's also funny. Because to me, it showed that they could not find an image from somebody who agreed with their narrative and consented to it being used by them. As a result, they chose the image of someone who's actually a very happily transitioned trans guy with zero regrets, and also does literal research that disproves Abigail's claims about medically transitioning, and has many lovely people who are fully aware of how happy I am with my journey, identity, and just generally my life since transitioning. I guess the joke's on them then. That's it. That's everything I wanted to say. I just think it's weird and frustrating, but then also funny, because just why? It really doesn't help spread your transphobic narrative when you're using an image of someone who's very happily transitioned. But yeah, that is everything for this video. Think about giving it a thumbs up and subscribing if you want to. It feels weird to say it on a video like this, but there's no pressure if you don't want to do that. And yeah, please remember point number 2, do not go show any attention to these places. I just really wanted to talk about why this is wrong, what's happened, and how I'm feeling about it, to be honest, and just reclaiming that image for myself, because, you know, what else can I do? And yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching and for all your support over the years. I will see you next time. Much love. Bye.